The porcelain horse shattered against the locked nursery door as I stepped into the Moretti house. 7 nannies had already walked through that black walnut entrance and left within days. One with a split lip from a hurled music box, another carrying a suitcase Sofia had packed for her herself. I knew those details because Adrian Moretti had arranged their resignation letters across his mahogany desk like evidence at a trial. Afternoon light burned gold through the tall windows, catching dust above the leather chairs. The room smelled of espresso, cedar polish, and the faint smoke clinging to his charcoal suit. "You understand my daughter is difficult," he said. His voice was low enough that I heard the brass clock ticking behind him. "I understand 7 adults blamed a child for making them leave." Adrian's fingers stopped beside the 7th letter. Men standing outside the frosted glass doors shifted their polished shoes, but he dismissed them with one glance. I had been warned that Adrian never needed to raise his voice. The silence around him did the work. "Sofia is 8, I continued. 8-year-olds don't drive adults away without a reason. You haven't met her." Another crash sounded overhead, followed by the rapid scrape of furniture. Neither of us looked toward the ceiling. "Then let me meet her before you tell me who she is." He leaned back, studying my plain navy dress, my worn leather portfolio, and the resume that had apparently survived an investigation more thorough than most federal screenings. "The position pays 3 times the usual salary. You will live here. My security rules are absolute. My instructions concerning Sofia are not open to debate." I closed the portfolio without touching the contract inside. The click of its brass clasp seemed indecently loud. "Then you don't need a nanny. You need another guard." His jaw tightened. "Be careful, Miss Bennett." "Clara," I said, "if you hire me, Sofia's needs come before your pride. If she requires quiet, I won't force conversation because you demand answers. If she needs space, I won't corner her because your schedule says bedtime. And if one of your orders harms her, I will refuse it." Cold air whispered from the vent across my hands. Adrian rose, and the polished desk suddenly felt too narrow between us. He was a man accustomed to obedience arriving before the command had finished leaving his mouth. "You are asking for permission to defy me in my own home." "No, I'm telling you the condition under which I'll work in it." Something tapped against the study door. Once. Twice. A small folded paper slid beneath the dark wood. Adrian reached it first. The paper was thick, torn from a sketchbook, and scented faintly with wax crayons. On it, a girl had drawn 7 faceless women walking away from a tall black house. Beside them stood an 8th figure in blue. Unlike the others, that figure faced the door. Adrian's eyes moved from the drawing to my dress. Upstairs, the house became utterly still. "Sofia has cameras," he said. She watched the interview. I crouched and placed the drawing flat on the floor, where whoever waited beyond the door might see I had not taken it away. "Then she already knows I won't lie to her." For several seconds, Adrian said nothing. The clock counted each one. Then he lifted the unsigned contract, crossed out the clause requiring unconditional compliance, and wrote a new sentence in black ink. "Clara Bennett retains authority over Sofia Moretti's immediate emotional needs, including the right to challenge my instructions." He signed beneath it. The pen scratched once, final and sharp. "You start tonight." I added my name beside his. The job was mine, but the first victory did not belong to either of us. It belonged to the silent child behind the door, who had just tested whether I would bend before she decided whether to let me stay. Rain struck the tall windows like handfuls of gravel, and thunder rolled through the Moretti estate hard enough to tremble the crystal drops of the hallway chandeliers. By midnight, every lamp in the music room was burning, yet Sofia was nowhere in sight. Clara found the child's slippers beside the grand piano, aligned neatly on the cold marble floor. A frightened child, she understood, did not always run without leaving a trail. Sometimes she left one deliberately, hoping the right person would follow. Beneath the piano, Sofia sat with her knees against her chest, surrounded by shadows and the dry scent of polished wood. Her small hands covered her ears. On the rug beside her lay the drawing from the interview, now folded into a narrow square. Clara lowered herself to the floor, but did not crawl closer. "I'm not going to make you come out," she said. Lightning bleached the windows white. Sofia flinched before the thunder arrived, counting the seconds between flash and impact with tiny movements of her lips. That was when Clara recognized the truth. The silence was not defiance. Sofia was listening for danger. "You don't have to speak," Clara murmured. "You can show me where it feels safer." Sofia kept her face hidden, but one finger moved toward the darkness beneath the piano. Clara removed her shoes and crawled under, sacrificing the distance adults usually guarded. The wool rug scratched her knees. The air smelled faintly of dust and lavender furniture wax. She sat several feet away, offering no questions and no touch. Another thunderclap shook the room. This time Sofia looked at her. Clara placed her open hand on the rug between them, palm upward, then began counting the storm in a whisper. 1, 2, 3. The next flash came. Before Clara reached 2, Sofia lunged forward and seized her hand. Her fingers were icy and fierce. Clara did not squeeze first. She waited until Sofia tightened her grip, then closed her own fingers gently around the child's. It was Sofia's choice, and that choice altered the entire house. For 2 years, Adrian had watched his daughter retreat from physicians, teachers, relatives, and 7 nannies. Now, from the unlit doorway, he saw Sofia pull Clara closer. No command had done it. No gift had purchased it. Clara leaned against the piano's carved leg, while Sofia tucked herself beneath her arm, still holding her hand as though releasing it might bring the thunder inside. The storm dragged toward dawn. When the final rumble faded beyond the gardens, Sofia slept with her cheek against Clara's chest, her breathing warm and even. Adrian stepped beneath the piano's curved edge, his black shirt creased from a night without rest. Clara raised one finger to her lips. The warning should have offended him. Instead, he removed his jacket and placed it over both of them. Sofia stirred. Even asleep, she reached for Clara's wrist and held on. Adrian's gaze settled on that small hand, then lifted to Clara's face. "She has never chosen anyone before," he whispered. Clara looked down at the child sheltered between them. "Then don't punish her for choosing." His jaw tightened. Beyond the windows, the clouds thinned to silver, exposing the iron gates and high walls that surrounded his daughter's world. Adrian rose slowly, power returning to his posture but not to his voice. "At breakfast, tell me what she needs." It was no longer an order. It was an admission that Clara could reach a place in Sofia he could not, and by morning, Adrian would have to decide whether he truly meant the authority he had signed away. By noon, sunlight poured through the breakfast room windows, turning the locked bronze handles into bars of gold. Beyond the glass, sprinklers hissed across acres of clipped lawn, but Sofia's untouched cereal had gone soft in the warm milk. Clara placed a cream-colored school flyer beside Adrian's coffee. The paper smelled faintly of crayons. "Sofia's class performs at 2. Adrian's spoon stopped against porcelain. "She isn't leaving the estate. She wants to go." Across the table, Sofia pressed both palms around a small cardboard moon she had painted silver. Adrian noticed the gray dust on her fingers, then the 2 armored vehicles waiting beneath the portico. There was a security warning this morning. There is always a warning. Clara's voice remained level. That is how fear becomes policy. His gaze hardened. "My daughter stays here." Clara looked at Sofia rather than him. "You gave me authority to protect what she needs, not authority to gamble with her life. Then come with us." The invitation landed harder than defiance. Adrian could command a dozen men before finishing his coffee, but Sofia was watching him as if only one answer mattered. He stood, buttoned his black jacket, and ordered the convoy prepared. 40 minutes later, the school auditorium smelled of floor wax, construction paper, and buttered popcorn. Folding chairs squeaked beneath restless parents while children whispered behind a blue velvet curtain. Adrian entered with 2 guards and immediately mapped every exit. Clara knelt beside Sofia near the stage steps, straightening the child's paper star crown. When a guard reached for Sofia's elbow, Clara blocked his hand. She walks out by herself. Adrian's mouth tightened, yet he lifted 2 fingers. The guard withdrew. Music crackled through old speakers. One by one, children crossed the stage carrying painted planets. Sofia remained behind the curtain, her silver moon trembling against her chest. Clara did not coax her. She simply stepped back and left the path open. Sofia searched the room, found Clara first, then Adrian. For one suspended second, the man who controlled cities could offer nothing but an open hand resting on his knee. Sofia walked into the light. No words came from her, but she raised the moon at exactly the right moment, and the audience applauded. The sound struck Adrian like a door opening inside a sealed house. Sofia did not hide. She smiled. Afterward, she ran past the guards and placed her cardboard moon in her father's hands. Its rough edge scraped his palm. "You disobeyed me," he said to Clara outside, where cold wind carried the smell of wet pavement. "Yes. If the warning had been real, then we would have faced it together. But keeping her alive is not the same as letting her live." Through the vehicle window, Sofia pressed her crown against the glass, waiting. Adrian looked toward the mansion in the distance. Stone walls, cameras, iron gates. Then back at the noisy school doors spilling children into the afternoon. He had built every barrier out of love and called it safety. "From now on," he said, handing Clara the moon. "Sofia leaves when Sofia needs to leave. You decide when that is." Clara accepted it carefully, silver paint catching on her thumb. Adrian had not forgiven the broken rule. He had surrendered it. And as his guards exchanged uneasy glances, the authority inside the Moretti household shifted toward the one woman who had dared to show him what his protection had cost. Camera shutters rattled beyond the wrought iron school gate, sharp as hail against the idling black SUVs. By sunrise, the photograph was everywhere. Sofia between Adrian and Clara, her paper crown tilted, Clara's silver-painted thumb resting near the child's shoulder, while Adrian watched them with an expression no Moretti capo had ever seen. The headline called Clara a nanny with expensive ambitions. The article called her Adrian's secret lover. On the mansion's breakfast table, newsprint smelled of wet ink beside untouched espresso. Clara folded the paper once, hiding Sofia's face. "Has she seen this?" "No," Adrian said. His voice was quiet, but 3 men waiting beyond the doorway stopped moving. "And she won't." In the council room downstairs, cigar smoke hung beneath amber lamps as the capos questioned Adrian's judgment. They did not care whether the story was true. They cared that he looked softened by a woman on his payroll. One of them slid a tablet across the polished walnut table. Comments scrolled beneath Clara's photograph. "Gold digger, opportunist, replacement wife." Adrian turned the screen face down. "Remove every article." "That confirms it," a capo warned. Then by the publishers. "That makes you look guilty." The room tightened around the ticking brass clock. For the first time, Adrian's enemies did not need weapons to weaken him. They only needed the image of his daughter, smiling beside Clara. Upstairs, a Moretti attorney placed a cream envelope before her. The settlement offered enough money to disappear comfortably, provided she resigned, signed a confidentiality agreement, and never publicly discussed Adrian or Sofia. The paper was thick beneath Clara's fingertips. The fountain pen beside it gleamed black and gold. "Mr. Moretti wants this handled discreetly," the attorney said. Adrian entered behind him. "I never authorized that offer." Clara looked from the attorney to Adrian, then lifted the document. For 1 second, he appeared to expect gratitude or obedience. Instead, she tore it cleanly down the center. The sound carried through the marble foyer. "Your money can remove a photograph," she said, placing the halves on the silver tray. "It cannot purchase my silence while strangers teach Sofia that any woman standing beside a powerful man must have sold herself." Before Adrian could answer, Clara walked through the open doors into the cold glare of the press line. Microphones rose. Guards reached for her, but Adrian stopped them with one lifted hand. Clara stood on the stone steps without jewelry, without an attorney, and without the Moretti name shielding her. "I was hired to care for an 8-year-old child," she said. "I will not apologize because she trusted me, and I will not accept money to make other people's lie look true. My dignity is not evidence of an affair. It is not for sale." Questions exploded across the driveway. Clara turned away without answering another one. Behind her, Adrian watched the capos receive the live broadcast on their phones. She had protected herself without borrowing his power, and forced his entire family to witness the difference between loyalty and ownership. That evening, the retractions had begun, but the damage inside the Moretti ranks remained. In Sofia's room, Clara found the silver moon resting on her pillow beside a fresh newspaper clipping. Across Clara's face, someone had drawn a red target. At the bottom, in block letters, a deadline waited. "She leaves by Friday, or Moretti loses more than respect." Clara closed the bedroom door before Sofia could see it. When she turned, Adrian was standing in the corridor. She handed him the clipping. "You don't get to buy my silence," she said. "And you don't get to decide what I'm willing to risk." Rainwater slid down the tall windows of the Moretti estate, turning the security lights outside into pale, trembling streaks. On Clara's desk, the marked photograph lay beside the silver moon Sofia had made, one object threatening exile, the other asking her to stay. By dawn, Clara had packed a single suitcase. She placed her resignation letter on Adrian's mahogany desk, returned her security badge, and left before Sofia woke. Adrian found the letter beneath the cold glow of his desk lamp. It contained no request for money and no accusation. "Sofia deserves a childhood that does not become ammunition against her father," Clara had written. "If my presence makes her a target, then loving her means knowing when to leave." Adrian's attorney stood across from him, the faint scent of coffee and wet wool clinging to his coat. He called her resignation prudent. The capos would see it as proof that Adrian remained in control. Adrian folded the letter once, slowly. "Cancel my meetings. The council is waiting. Then they can learn how waiting feels." By evening, his armored sedan stopped outside Clara's brick apartment building without an escort convoy. Adrian dismissed the driver and climbed 3 narrow flights alone, past radiators knocking in the walls and the warm smell of onions drifting beneath a neighbor's door. No guards opened the way. No staff announced him. When Clara answered, she wore a faded gray sweater, and behind her stood a room small enough for him to see almost all of it at once. A second-hand couch, stacked counseling books, a chipped blue mug, and Sofia's drawings fixed to the refrigerator with mismatched magnets. "You shouldn't be here," Clara said. "That is what everyone tells me when they want me to remain comfortable." She tried to close the door. Adrian stopped it with his palm, then immediately stepped back, leaving the choice in her hands. "I resigned," she said. "I read it. Then respect it." "No," the word landed softly, without the steel he used at the estate. He removed his coat and set it over his arm, stripped of the black silhouette that made rooms obey. "I hired 7 people who followed every instruction I gave them. Sofia disappeared further each time. Then you came into my house and told me my rules were hurting her." Clara's fingers tightened around the doorknob. "Your enemies turned her smile into a weapon. And you decided the answer was to remove the person who gave it back to her." The radiator clicked into silence. Adrian looked past Clara at a crayon picture of 3 figures beneath a silver moon. His voice lowered. "I do not need an employee who obeys me. I need someone who will tell me when I am failing as a father, even when I hate hearing it." Clara opened the door wider, but did not invite him in. Need is not the same as trust. Adrian took his phone from his pocket. In front of her, he called the estate and ordered that Clara's resignation not be processed, her authority over Sofia remain intact, and no guard interfere with her decisions unless Sofia faced immediate physical danger. Then he placed the phone on the hallway floor between them. "My power stays outside this door," he said. "If you return, it will be because you choose to, not because I bought, ordered, or frightened you into it." For the first time, Adrian Moretti stood in someone else's world with nothing to command. Clara studied the rain darkening his shoulders, then stepped aside. "You may come in," she said. "But before I return, you are going to learn what trusting me could cost you." The door closed behind him, and Adrian did not reach for the handle. The envelope slid across Clara's kitchen table with the dry hiss of paper against worn oak. A radiator clicked beneath the window, filling the small apartment with metallic heat, while Adrian read the name stamped across the confidential file. Clara Bennett. Beneath it, in unforgiving black type, "Professional license revoked." Clara remained standing beside the sink, one palm pressed against its cold porcelain edge. The file said she had falsified a patient assessment 3 years earlier. It did not say the assessment belonged to a colleague with 2 children, or that Clara had accepted responsibility after discovering the woman's abusive husband had threatened to take them away. Adrian closed the folder. "You sacrificed your career for her." "I made a choice," Clara said, "and I have lived with it." His phone vibrated on the table. The message contained no greeting, only an ultimatum. Dismiss Clara publicly by midnight, or the file would be delivered to family court with evidence claiming Adrian had knowingly placed Sofia in the care of an unlicensed counselor. His rivals did not need the allegation to be true. They only needed a judge to question whether the Moretti estate was safe for an 8-year-old child. Adrian's thumb hovered over the screen. I can bury this. That is exactly why I cannot return. Clara crossed the room and took the phone from his hand. Its glass felt warm against her fingers. She read the ultimatum once, then dialed the Moretti attorney herself. Adrian rose so quickly that the chair legs scraped across the floor. Clara. She lifted one finger, not asking permission, only silence. When the attorney answered, Clara's voice was level. Prepare a permanent resignation. State that Mr. Moretti had no knowledge of my disciplinary history before hiring me and that I concealed it from him. Adrian's jaw hardened. That is not what happened. It is what protects Sofia. The attorney hesitated, then warned that signing such a statement would destroy Clara's pending appeal. Her chance of regaining her license would vanish. No counseling board would trust her again. Clara looked toward the narrow bookshelf where Sofia's silver moon rested beside a chipped ceramic lamp. The foil surface caught the amber light and scattered it across the wall like a small, trembling constellation. Send it, she said. Adrian reached for the phone, but Clara stepped back. This was not his decision to seize, fix, or purchase. Minutes later, the document arrived. The printer shuddered awake, releasing warm sheets that smelled of toner. Clara signed each page in blue ink. With every stroke, she surrendered another future. Her work, her appeal, the child who had chosen her hand beneath a piano. Adrian stood motionless until she placed the completed resignation against his chest. You told me my return had to be voluntary, she said. So does my leaving. I will not accept this. You do not have to. The court only has to see it before your enemies send that file. She removed the Moretti house key from her ring and set it beside the silver moon. The tiny impact sounded louder than the radiator, louder than the traffic below. Then she walked past him, carrying no settlement check and asking for no promise. By midnight, the statement had reached the attorney. The threat against Adrian's custody had collapsed, and Clara's professional appeal had been withdrawn beyond recovery. Yet in the estate's silent nursery, one question remained waiting in the dark. What would Sofia do when she woke and discovered that the woman who had taught her to choose had disappeared? Rain tapped against the nursery windows, soft as fingernails on glass, while the hallway lamps cast pale bars across the carpet. By dawn, Sofia had found the empty hook where Clara's key once hung, the untouched breakfast tray, and the silver moon lying cold beside the radiator. She did not cry. She carried the moon upstairs, closed her bedroom door, and began pulling drawings from beneath her mattress. Hours later, Adrian sat alone in his study. Clara's resignation spread across the mahogany desk beneath a pool of amber light. The paper smelled faintly of toner. Her signature looked impossibly steady. A guard appeared at the doorway but did not enter. Sofia stood behind him, barefoot in her white nightgown, clutching a thick stack of drawings against her chest. Adrian dismissed the guard with one lifted finger. Come here, sweetheart. Sofia remained beside the door. Then she placed the silver moon on top of the drawings and pushed the stack across the polished floor. The pages fanned open between them. Black rain, a bent iron gate, her mother's blue car, and a tall man wearing a crimson tie. Adrian recognized that tie. He had given it to his closest advisor on Christmas. Sofia pointed to the first picture. Clara's neat handwriting appeared beneath the crayon. What happened before the loud sound? In the second drawing, the crimson-tied man stood beside the car with its hood raised. In the third, Sofia's mother was arguing with him while rain streaked the garage windows. Adrian lowered himself to the carpet, expensive wool biting into his knees. Did Clara tell you to draw this? Sofia shook her head. Her finger moved to another sentence in Clara's handwriting. You choose what the picture means. No guesses. No answers placed in her mouth. Only space. Clara had not uncovered the truth for Sofia. She had protected Sofia's right to reveal it. The radiator clicked. Somewhere downstairs, a grandfather clock struck 9, each note rolling through the house like a warning. Sofia pressed both palms to the final page. The man in the crimson tie held her mother's phone while the blue car waited beyond the open garage. Beside him, Sofia had drawn Adrian's private route ledger, the book only his inner circle knew existed. Adrian's hand stopped above the paper. The crash had been called an accident. His advisor had blamed wet pavement, then used Sofia's silence to seal the story. You saw him, Adrian asked. Sofia's lips parted, but no sound came. He did not move closer. He did not command. He waited as Clara had taught him to wait. Sofia lifted the silver moon and curled it into her palm. He sent Mommy away. The first words she had spoken in 2 years were scarcely louder than the rain. Adrian's face emptied of color. What did you say? He took her phone. Mommy said she would tell you. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. He said you would believe him. Adrian reached for her, then stopped with his hands suspended between them, leaving the choice where it belonged. Sofia crossed the carpet and stepped into his arms. His chair creaked as he gathered her against his chest, one hand shielding the back of her head. On the desk, Clara's resignation no longer looked like an ending. It looked like the final price paid by the only woman who had given his daughter enough safety to speak. Adrian pressed the intercom. Bring my advisor to the council room. His voice was quiet, stripped of every trace of hesitation. And find Clara Bennett before anyone else does. Yet Sofia tightened her hand around his sleeve and looked up at him. If you bring her back, she whispered, will you make her leave again when loving us costs you something? The room went still. Adrian had spent his life forcing other men to choose. Now his 8-year-old daughter had placed the only choice that mattered directly before him. The council room smelled of old leather, burnt espresso, and the cold rain clinging to the men's overcoats. Beneath the amber chandelier, Adrian's trusted advisor stood at the far end of the black walnut table while the capos waited in rigid silence. Adrian entered with Sofia beside him, her small fingers wrapped around the silver moon. He did not take the chair at the head of the table. Instead, he placed Clara's signed resignation on the polished wood, then laid Sofia's drawings beside it. You betrayed my wife, he said. The advisor's face tightened. No denial came. Only the soft ticking of the brass clock answered him. Adrian's men moved toward the doors, but the advisor raised one hand. Before you punish me, understand what happens next. The capos already doubt you. Restore Bennett's appeal. Bring her into this house, and they will see a man ruled by a nanny. A thin smile touched his mouth. Choose her, and you lose the Moretti empire. Adrian looked down at Sofia. She did not hide behind him. She set the silver moon on top of Clara's resignation, then stepped away from the table, leaving the decision entirely in his hands. For years, every man in that room had obeyed Adrian because he never surrendered leverage. Now he reached inside his jacket and removed the signet ring that authorized his command over the Moretti organization. The gold struck the table with a hard, clean sound. Then the empire can lose me. Chairs scraped across the stone floor. One capo rose. Another muttered that Adrian was throwing away everything his family had built. Adrian slid a sealed document toward the Moretti attorney. He had ordered it prepared while the council assembled. It transferred operational authority away from him and surrendered the protections, income, and command attached to his position. File it tonight, he said, and submit a sworn statement clearing Clara Bennett of deception. Include the truth about why she resigned and who threatened Sofia's custody. The attorney stared at the signature, then nodded. The advisor's smile disappeared. Without Adrian's office shielding him, he no longer faced a private act of vengeance that could be dismissed as a power struggle. He faced evidence, witnesses, and lawful exposure. Adrian ordered him detained for the authorities, then turned to the capos. No retaliation against Clara. No surveillance. No approach to her home. Anyone who touches her answers for violating Sofia's safety, not my pride. One by one, the men who had once lowered their eyes to his ring looked at the bare hand resting on the table. Adrian had not merely risked his throne. He had stepped away from it while everyone watched. Sofia crossed the cold marble and slipped her hand into his. Does this mean she can stay? Adrian knelt until the wool of his trousers met the floor. It means no one will ever make her earn a place in our lives by destroying her own. 40 minutes later, his armored car stopped outside Clara's modest apartment building, but Adrian left the guards at the curb. Rain darkened his coat as he climbed the narrow stairs carrying no contract, no settlement, and no authority he could use against her. Beneath the flickering hallway light, he raised his bare hand and knocked. Footsteps approached across the other side of the door. When the lock finally turned, Adrian understood that surrendering an empire had been simple compared with what came next, asking Clara to choose him freely. Rain tapped against the hallway window, and somewhere behind the old walls, a radiator knocked with the tired rhythm of a second heartbeat. The door opened only a few inches. Clara Bennett stood beneath the apartment's amber light, wearing a gray sweater, her hand still wrapped around the brass knob. Her gaze moved from Adrian's rain-darkened coat to his bare right hand. No ring, no guards, no leather case. If you came to offer me another arrangement, she said, don't. Adrian remained outside, cold water slipping from his hair onto the worn carpet. I corrected your record. The resignation has been voided. The advisor will answer in court, and I no longer command the Moretti organization. Clara's fingers tightened on the knob. You gave up an empire? I gave up the excuse I used to control everyone I was afraid to lose. The radiator struck once, then fell silent. Clara opened the door wider, but she did not step aside. That doesn't mean I belong to you. No. Adrian's answer came without hesitation. It means you belong to yourself. He placed the estate keys she had returned on the small table beside the doorway. The silver teeth caught the lamplight. Your license will be restored because the truth deserves restoring. Your place in Sofia's life is yours only if you want it. And if you never come back, no one will follow you, watch you, or punish you for choosing freedom. Clara studied him as if searching for the hidden clause beneath every word. Then why are you here? For years, Adrian had negotiated with men who measured hesitation in blood and weakness in inches. Now his voice lowered until it was nearly lost beneath the rain. Because I hired you to care for my daughter, and somewhere between the night under the piano and the morning you walked away, I fell in love with the woman who taught both of us how to live without fear. Clara's breath caught, but she did not rescue him from the silence. Instead, she reached into her pocket and drew out the silver moon Sofia had once pressed into her palm. Sofia gave this to me before I left, she said. She told me it was for finding my way home. Adrian looked at the little metal moon resting against Clara's skin. She was right. Not yet. Clara stepped into the hallway, closing the apartment door behind her. This time, she changed the terms. She told him she would return as Sofia's counselor and guardian by choice, never as a servant whose loyalty could be purchased. She would keep her own apartment, rebuild her career, and leave any room where her dignity was questioned. Adrian agreed to every condition before she finished speaking. Then Clara placed the silver moon in his palm and curled his fingers around it. And us? He asked. Us begins without contracts. She kissed him softly, not as an employee accepting protection, but as a woman making an unforced choice. By dawn, they reached the estate together. Sofia waited on the front steps in her pajamas, the morning air pale and cool around her. Clara crouched, and the child ran into her arms. Adrian stopped several feet away until Clara extended one hand toward him. Months later, beneath those same steps, Sofia stood between them as Clara's restored counseling certificate hung inside the house, and Adrian wore no signet ring. There was no counsel, no bargain, and no command when he asked Clara to build a life with him. Her yes belonged entirely to her. And in the end, the most powerful thing Adrian Moretti ever held was not an empire, but the hand of a woman who was finally free to love him back.